Alright, you primitive screwheads, listen up. It's time for two NerdSkis and a podcast!
Next level.
Okay, we are live, and all right. Welcome, everybody, to the second installment of the show. Of course, this is myself, and I, Eric, and I've got my partner in crime, Jeff, here. However,
Alright.
this time, the show. It's called Two NerdSkis and Podcast. Today, however, we're joined by a very special guest, and this is only the second episode, too, so it's a very special guest. Why don't you introduce yourself for us?
Oh, hi guys, I'm Josh B. Thank you for having me here, Eric and Jeff. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I'm glad to be here.
Love to hear it, man.
Yeah, love to have you. So, Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm 26, and I currently live in Canada.
What part of Canada do you live in?
That part I'm a little fuzzy on. I think, I'm a fuzzy on that part.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. But you do live in the Great White North, that is Canada. All right. Sweet. Well, Josh, I'm really happy that you're able to join us. We had a little bit of technical difficulties getting this set up today, but I really appreciate you coming on and talking about what I like to call, or rather what Red Letter Media likes to call, one of the most awesomest movies ever made, and it is Tremors. So, all right, let's get started on Tremors, shall we? So, Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tremors?
So Tremors came out in 1990, and it was produced on a budget of about $11 million, and it starred the one and only Monsieur Kevin Bacon. Had Fred Ward from who also starred in Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, which I just
forgot about that,
which I just recently saw, and it's incredible. And you got Michael Gross, you got Reba McEntire, you got Finn Carter. Good little cast in there. Extraordinary.
You also have Victor Wong. He plays Chang in the movie, but we'll get a little bit into that. But just a little side note, I remember most people remember Victor Wong from most of John Carpenter's movies.
That's right.
I remember him from the Three Ninjas series.
You also have Ariana Richards of Jurassic Park fame.
That's right.
Who would have thought that the little girl from Jurassic Park ended up fighting giant worms in the sand first, and then ended up being chased by dinosaurs?
What an interesting childhood.
I know, right? And what? She's an artist now, though, right?
Yeah, no, like I've seen her work, and it's solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think I've seen any of her artwork though, so I'd have to check it out. But so, anyways, what is the basic plot of Tremors?
So Tremors follows two, no better way to put it, losers who are essentially handymen in this shithole town in the middle of the desert. Probably about population 13 or something like that.
I think it's 14.
14, that's right. And one day, after they just hit their low point of having a septic tank blow shit all over them, Val and Earl just decide they want to get the hell out of this town. But it just so happens to be the one day where these giant underground monsters start emerging from under the ground and cut off every possible route out of town. So now they have to basically band together with the town residents and find a way to survive, essentially, from these giant underground monsters. That's as bare basic as a premise as I can offer, because in all honesty, you have to see the movie. It
is definitely a movie that is very unique for what it is. I mean, it's more than just a monster movie. It's a comedy as well. It's kind of an adventure film as well.
It's a Western. It's a comedy. It's
horror. It's definitely very much a Western. Yeah, especially given the locale of the movie. Real quick, so I want to start with you, Josh. how did you come across this film? Like, where did you come across Tremors?
Well, I recall this moment very well. I can't remember how old I was specifically, but I do remember the details. My mother and my sister and I were just coming home from Bayshore or Mall. The TV was on, and my sister said, "Oh, I want to watch this movie called Tremors." And little me said, "Tremors? What's that?" And then she introduced me to the movie, and then here we are.
I have a similar kind of uh, discovery with the film too, much like in the way of Josh. So I think my dad also was like, I mean, my dad was constantly watching TV a lot, and so he came across. I think it was just what channel surfing, and I forget what station it was. It was playing Tremors, but he Tremors was on, and I was like, "What's going on here?" I didn't remember too much about it, but I just knew it was a movie that existed, and for the longest time, I didn't really like give much notice to it. And then Jeff here reintroduced the movie to me, and as a result, me and Jeff and Josh too, we end up quoting the movie quite a bit because there's a lot of memorable quotes in this film.
We're victims of circumstance.
God damn it! I knew you were gonna say some shit already. But yeah, no, I think yeah, for me, definitely it was the TV route. I know I've heard Jeff's story about how he came across it, and so Jeff, how exactly did you come across Tremors?
In the most organic possible way that anyone could discover a cheesy monster movie in the early 2000s. I rented it from my local Blockbuster video. And it was like on VHS, so that fact I'm very proud of. And when it came to just looking at the cover, I didn't really know what to expect from it, and then I just figured, looking at the poster, I just assumed that's what the monster looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And when it turned out to be, not that, just only an element of the creature, that absolutely blew my mind. And I just found myself getting so into. I found myself rooting for the characters, which because I was probably about 6 or 7 when I first saw this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the time I'm just waiting. I'm just like putting up with the dialogue and just waiting for the monsters to show up. But this was like the first, probably the first creature feature that I can recall where I was actually having a great time just watching the characters interact with each other.
Right.
And so that was definitely a first for me, coming to the realization that a monster movie could actually be much more than just a pretty much like a spectacle for a bunch of cool special effects and creatures and everything.
Mhm.
And so it then I ended up renting Tremors 2 and then Tremors 3, and I rented those movies over and over and over again, and it's they've always just stuck with me.
Yeah, it's interesting with Tremors. You mentioned home video because initially the movie didn't do so well in theaters, correct?
I think it barely scraped by, and I think when it actually came on to when it actually was released on a home video,
Mhm.
actually through rentals exclusively, pretty sure it tripled its profit.
Yeah, and then of course it gets a new life on television as well with repeat like reruns being aired on like whatever channel was airing it at the time. So this movie ended up becoming like a major cult classic too, and this was also a film that ironically, supposedly was supposed to be the end of Kevin Bacon's career. Also, who would have thought that this movie would end up saving his career in the process?
Honestly, yeah. Like, and it's I always find it so funny that that's he always considered this a low point of the low point of his career, uh, and then all these years later, actually tried to revive Tremors.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
like we'll definitely talk about that on a future episode, but I think the fact that he even produced that show showed that looking back, that he's matured much more as an actor, that he was actually respecting his roots. And so
Mm.
yeah, like I'm just gushing about Kevin Bacon.
I mean, as we should. Ironic. So, by the way, our previous episode we talked about the the movie Footloose and how it compares to and how the remake compares to it. Ironic that we have a trend of talking about Kevin Bacon. We can't seem to escape from Kevin fucking Bacon, can
Well,
we?
like
Well,
Gamora said, we're just like Kevin Bacon.
Wait, who said that?
Like Gamora did in the first Guardians movie.
Oh,
ah,
oh, that's right. Yeah, because that's right. Star Lord really loves Footloose. It's funny too because in Infinity War he's like, is it still considered the greatest movie ever made? And Spider Man's like, it never was.
Or like Kevin
And
Bacon,
yet,
is he an Avenger? I don't
yeah,
know.
he never was. But I mean, speaking of Kevin Bacon, so let's talk about the rest of the cast. So I mean, obviously you have Fred Ward playing Val. I mean, no, he's playing. Oh God, no, no. Val is Kevin Bacon, and Earl is Fred Ward.
Fred Ward is an underrated gem of an actor.
Do you want to talk about it a little bit? You know a little bit more about Fred Ward than I do.
So Fred Ward is he's always just one of those great gruff character actors. But it's like whenever you see him in a role, he always manages to leave an impression. I mean, hell, he was like the main villain in Naked Gun 3, and he killed it. And because he's one of those actors that you can put him in a ridiculous scenario, and he can always maintain a sense of seriousness, and he like he carries that on into Tremors too, which I don't think you've seen, Eric. Which
No, I haven't. So, like, unlike you guys, so my only experience outside of Tremors in terms of the franchise, I've seen the fifth sequel, and that's about it. I mean, I know there are definitely sequels following this film.
so it,
By the
so
way,
so Bloodlines or Cold Day in Hell?
Bloodlines, that's number 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've seen that one. By the way, I just want to make a quick mention. I was watching the movie. Like, there's a note. So as they're getting ready to go to Bixby, like on horseback, so Val just goes like, "Who knows? Maybe these suckers could fly."
Foreshadowing.
Yep, foreshadowing, complete foreshadowing. Especially given but they don't show up until like what, the fifth or no, the second or third movie.
They
Third
actually
movie.
start flying in the third movie.
Third, okay, all right, but we're getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves there. But we also have the excellent Michael Gross. By the way, who would have thought that his character would be the one to carry the franchise for the remainder of the franchise?
I
And
mean,
it kind of makes sense a little bit too, given that he is a survivalist.
Yeah, but-
exactly.
Yeah, but the part that makes it more funny is that he started out on Family Matters as a father, and he goes from comedy
Yeah.
to this.
Uh-huh.
Actually, what's I think the interesting piece of trivia that the day after he finished filming the finale of that show, very next day starts shooting Tremors.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I was gonna bring that up. I found it just ironic that he went from like one sort of like good, well-known show. I didn't watch Family Ties, so I'm not too familiar with it. But he went from that to like spearheading eventually a little monster franchise, if you will.
I mean, that
It's just ironic, you know.
just shows what a badass he truly is.
And then we have Finn Carter. She plays Rhonda. She's the seismologist. Then again, Val and Earl also make that comment too. It's like, what's she? Geologist. No, she's more a seismologist. I have here in my notes that apparently if you're some sort of scientist, then everyone goes to you for all questions because everyone goes to her for all questions. And she's like, what the hell am I supposed to know? I don't know everything.
You're a scientist, aren't you?
Uh-huh. Fun fact. So, I mean, I found out a little bit today that, have you seen Finn Carter by any chance? Yeah.
I unfortunately have.
I unfortunately
I wish her the very best.
Yeah, unfortunately, she's had some pretty bad run-ins with the law, so it's kind of sad. Yeah, that's a little awkward there, to say the least. But we still have I find it fascinating that this was so Reba McEntire. She plays Heather, who is Bert's wife, Michael Gross's character. And apparently, this was her first acting role. I think, or maybe at least her first feature film. And
It was, yeah.
I have to say, she doesn't do too bad in this movie. I did like her a bit.
Yeah, no, like I
She's totally
honestly,
believable.
yeah, absolutely.
So, so that's basically kind of our cast. We briefly mentioned Ariana Richards and Victor Wong, but so overall, so how do we all feel about this movie? I'm pretty sure. I mean, we're still pretty on early on, but pretty sure we all agree that this is indeed a pretty damn good movie. Am I correct?
Yes.
Josh, you okay there?
You,
Riff to Josh.
you still with us, buddy?
Josh, can you hear us?
You right, Josh?
Yeah, sorry, I just had to go to the bathroom.
Oh,
Oh.
you're good, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
I just told-
We'll cut that audio then.
Yeah, sorry
But
about
yeah,
that.
but no, Josh, we were just asking. So, how do you feel about this movie overall? Like, we pretty much agreed that this is pretty much one of the one of the greatest, awesomest movies ever made. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Absolutely.
Well, it is perfection, or near perfection, after all. So, I mean, let's seriously talk about it, because on a technical level, this movie is actually pretty damn good.
Absolutely. It was essentially one of the last movies that comes to mind to use entire practical effects.
Mhm. I
Like,
mean, there is like one shot in the movie that doesn't quite work, but we'll get to that part. But yeah, no, I think this movie technically, on a technical matter, God, I keep repeating myself, but on that matter alone, I think just perfectly works, because it uses pretty much kind of every trick in the book
oh
in terms
yeah,
of like
absolutely.
80s and 90s like effects. This is definitely predating CGI, so there is no CGI at this point. Did they use CGI in Tremors 2 by any chance?
Oh yes, they for a few shots, but they use it very sparingly.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah. So technically, yeah, this is a really well done movie. I like how they use a pretty good amount of foreshadowing, I feel like, in this movie too. So, in Chang's, is it a convenience store or just a market store?
I think it's both.
It's
Pretty
both.
much,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fair enough. So like, there's a good, clever bit of foreshadowing, because like this movie has a pretty, it has great build up and setup, and one of those great moments is, so they have what is it? Is a fridge that keeps acting up
Yeah,
at
like
one
a
point,
fridge or freezer, something like
a
that.
freezer, and it makes a lot of noise when it acts up, and so when the creatures eventually try to attack them from the town, and then it makes off that because they're attracted to noise. So when the fridge goes off, unfortunately, it does attract the attention of the graboids, and Chang does eventually bite the dust. By the way, that is a kind of a gruesome way to die for Chang, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty. I mean, like, what a way to go, though. I mean, that's a pretty cool. Would you say it's a pretty cool movie death? I mean, it's definitely one of the more visible deaths, because the other
It,
deaths
it
are a little.
it definitely is. I mean, it's I think that that death specifically is just kind of gives like a really good point blank example of how of a just showcasing the practical effects,
Mhm.
because that's a real, like, there's a real physical object on hydraulics, bursting through the floor and really having the actor in its mouth, and it's really moving, it's really pulling him under. And so the fact because that's just one of those things that CG can never replicate. And even from my perspective as a young kid, seeing that, it scared the crap out of me, because it looked real, because again, there was actually something there. And so if anything, that the practical effects just makes all the difference.
Oh yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
definitely agree.
I did
What were you
love
gonna
him.
say, Josh?
Did love that jab in the second movie though, when with him in the name, like Like where they say in the second movie, "Who named these things graboids?" Walter Chang
Oh.
did, and then he named them, and then they ate them.
That just reminds me. That just really goes to show I really need to watch the sequels for sure at some point.
Yeah, honestly, like I think you would at least really dig Tremors 2.
Something tells me I would, just because Fred Ward's in it, and Fred Ward I do like, actually, to an extent. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his films, but I know. I think I've seen at least one of his movies, but I just haven't come across. I just don't remember.
I forgot he was in Escape from Alcatraz.
Was he really in that movie?
Yeah, like that's how far his career goes back.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just don't really recall, man. Ah, man. But I mean, he's definitely up there in age. That's not to say that's a bad thing. That's just him, though. But that's just that. I mean, so Josh, how do you feel about the technical aspects of the film? Like how how mind breaking are they for you? Like how awesome are they?
Well, they are amazing. This is at a time when practical effects with CG was at its highest, when they really used it in movies sparingly well. Well, to the point where I believed they were real creatures, like Jurassic Park, this movie, other movies. They really pull off practical effects beautifully, and they hold up.
Mm-hmm. So let's since we're pretty much talking about it, let's talk about the creatures in question, the graboids. So I think it's just interestingly enough, in doing some research, a little bit of note searching. So this was originally, if you really think about this movie is essentially Jaws with giant worms in the sand. Let's be honest. This is kind of a Jaws knockoff, but it's a very unique Jaws knockoff.
It's actually funny you say that, because that was going to be the title for the movie. The screenwriters S.S. Wilson and Brett Maddock came up with the idea for this movie because they were out on a rock one day and they were thinking, what if there was something under the ground that was keeping us from getting off? And the original title was Land Sharks, until they changed it.
Yeah, they changed it because SNL had already created a sketch for that, like around the time the first Jaws came around. I mean, that sketch is actually pretty funny, by the way.
And actually, going off of Josh's point right there, I think, I mean, the fact that that one little moment like that, just sitting on a rock and just coming up with a what if scenario, led to the creation of a monster franchise that's still technically going on to this day. Because at the time we're recording this, Tremor 7 is not out yet, so still ongoing, and it's and I think that's what's in a way kind of the beauty of this first movie is the simplicity, because you're not given an explanation for what these creatures are. You're not given an explanation for where they come from. They there's a scene where all the characters, spout out a bunch of theories, but you don't get an explanation, because, in the end, they just have to get a basic idea for what they're going up against and learn how to survive.
It's interesting to bring that up, because I mean, let's go about some of those theories. So I think Earl says, I'm voting outer space.
Yeah, and actually, yeah, because I think while they were writing the script, they kept that entire exchange was kind of a joke to themselves, because they were trying to come up with all these explanations, like, oh, did they come from a government lab? Are they from outer space? This and that, and then
do they predate the pre-fossil age? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then when they just kind of figured, do we really have to explain it? And when they just kind of said, nah, fuck it, and they just kind of made it a joke, and actually just kind of turned it into one of the funnier scenes of the whole movie.
I mean, it's also funny that you mentioned that too, because I feel like most monster movies have I wouldn't say a pretty good explanation, but they tend to have an explanation of where these creatures sort of like came from. And I mean, there's a lot of evidence that, I mean, we'll get to that, but there's definitely a lot of theories that surround the graboids as to where they specifically come from. I think eventually in the sequels, you kind of get an idea, maybe they're prehistoric creatures, but it doesn't really matter. For first film's like intentions, it truly doesn't matter. In the end, all that matters is like they hunt by vibration. They travel through the ground with like this. They travel through the ground, and if you make any sort of noise too, that's also going to be an issue. So it really, in the end, it doesn't truly matter. What matters is that they're there and don't make a sound. That's about it. Which is kind of genius, actually, if you really think about it.
It is.
They don't really spend too much time because you don't really have time to kind of come up with like ideas. You don't have time to like come up with an explanation because it doesn't really drive the plot any further. All it really matters is like these worms are out to get us, and we need to find a way to either escape from them or kill them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love the way they do that in the first scene on the rock, though, where they're thinking, "Why don't we just make a run for it? We ran them out yesterday." Well, that's not a plan. That's what you do when it fails.
It is true, though, isn't it? By the way, I think all three of us definitely recognize that moment, but like, so that's where they first. So the movie kind of starts with Kevin Bacon pissing off a cliff, and it ends on that same cliff with a graboid flying off that same cliff. I think.
Can you
Is it the
fly,
same
you
cliff?
sucker?
Can you fly, you sucker? Yeah. No, so yeah, there's really no true explanation to where these graboids come from, but if we had to guess, so I personally believe that they predate the fossil age, that these creatures have just been here, and this is the first time we've ever come across them. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think that they're... I mean, what's your favorite theory, essentially, is my question.
Sadly, the sequels kind of kill theory, so I don't have one.
Really?
Yeah, same.
Do they?
Yeah, the sequels, as they go on, they like every sequel kind of explains a different element of the evolutionary process of the creature. So that's like, as much as I enjoy a majority of the sequels, they do destroy the mystery around the graboid. So that's that's a fundamental flaw with all of them. But when you're doing a sequel, you have to expand on the creature somehow.
Well, how about the design of the creatures? Because I really, if you, in all honesty, like practically speaking, I think the designs look great. At least for this,
it's a wonderful design. Like it actually looks like something that could have existed.
That could exist, couldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because it has like a a hardened head, so that it's able to tunnel through all the dirt. It has like the spikes on its side to cut through all the soil and everything. And with the worm tongues and everything, it's a very practically designed creature where because you see a lot of if you watch a lot of creature features, it's a lot of them get carried away with the design, just desperately trying to make it stand out in a way, and it just has a lot of useless features. But everything regarding the graboid, it always, like, everything relating to it, to its anatomy, always has a practical purpose to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like the build up for the graboid too. So in the beginning, obviously you just see kind of like something moving in the ground. There is something there, you just don't see it yet. So at first you see that, and then you kind of get like your first glimpse of it with so when they're driving to Bixby and you see like the road construction guys. So this guy with his pile driver, he's pile driving, and then you hear like an animal screech, like a really painful animal screech, and you see like, what is it, orange kind of blood kind of oozing out of the ground,
Something like that, yeah.
and then you see him get dragged off by the cable, whatnot. He's fucking dead, and then his the other guy's buddy or coworker, he gets like, there's a landslide gets like caused by the disruption, and his buddy dies in the process. You see the farmer, he's like, the first sign of trouble is his sheep are kind of scattering around in the pen or whatnot, and then he gets fucking dragged into the ground. Well, before that, you see the scarecrow kind of like tilting over and whatnot, and then you get a brief glimpse of it when when Earl and Val, when they're first trying to drive away from back to town, they get caught into something, and then when they arrive back into town, the they notice that there's something wrapped around the truck, and you see like this weird tentacle looking creature. It's got like teeth and shit. There's no eyes though, but the teeth are there. And then the last people to die is also the first time we see like the true glimpse, like a first real glimpse of the creatures in action. This is the tongues, obviously, or the tentacles, and so they drag the doctor down. Well, no, they're because the doctor and his wife they're new in town, and so they're building their house, and so the generator is making noise, and so the generator is sucked into the ground, and then it's thrown the fuck back out in some pretty fucking awesome fashion, I might add, but that's just me. And so the generator is thrown out of the ground, and then the doctor's like grabbing the cord and he's like, what the hell happened? So he grabs it, and then as he's patting the ground for the dust away, there's that fucking tentacle, and he's like, oh shit. And then you realize, and then as he's dragged in the ground, his wife runs away, and then she's like, oh my god, there's multiple tentacles. So we're led to believe at first that there are like multiple of these tentacle creatures. It's once Val and Earl finally encounter the graboid that you fully see what this thing looks like, and you realize this is like an even bigger threat than we thought, because you thought that these were just these giant worms, because the quote where it's like, there must be a million of them. It's like, no, there's just one.
And also, like, I think
so yeah, the setup for these creatures is great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like the setup for these creatures is great. It's kind of like how in Jaws, right? Because the Bruce the shark, could not work technically right, so they could only use him sparingly. So before he's first officially shown, just the buildup for that creature is great, and I feel like the same could be said here for the graboids, and I think it just works perfectly.
Oh no,
Absolutely.
I agree, and I think that's what the best movies with suspense do. They don't show the creature in the beginning, but they do the reveals later on by building it.
It's a gradual buildup too, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
and I think it works because it makes it more satisfying when you finally see the creature.
Because then you're just like, you see like, oh, okay, I think that's what that looks like, and then you see it full, and like, holy shit!
Well, I think kind of going off your point right there. I think this is one of the best paced movies in the genre.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because
within a half hour, you see you're introduced to the setting. You get a great idea for how all the characters are. You get to know Val and Earl pretty well and how their dynamic works. You already get a couple decent sequences, building up the suspense and tension of the creature. And
absolutely.
At the half hour mark, you get the full reveal. Like, it doesn't. You don't feel like it blew its load too early. It's all a very natural progression, and it's the movie's barely over 90 minutes long.
I was gonna say it's not a very long movie. I think it's only about, let's see, it's 96 minutes. I thought it was 97 minutes, but
yeah,
damn near close.
So it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't bog itself down in exposition. Every scene, every scene is relevant. Like, you're just looking at it from an editing perspective. Like, there's honestly nothing I would really cut, which is honestly like really rare for me to say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you feel about that, Josh? Do you also agree that it is pretty paced well?
Oh yeah, I think it's perfectly paced. I mean, we open with our main characters. We get some great bits of hilarious dialogue. The build-up is very, very good. We get a few kills, good suspension building, and then by the end of the movie, you're thinking, "Fuck, that was great. I want to see it again."
Exactly. It's such an easy movie to rewatch.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it gets boring anytime too. Like,
not at all.
No, yeah, because like at no point do you feel like you're like, oh god, when is this movie gonna end? No, it keeps you entertained throughout at a pretty good, decent pace. It knows when to ramp the tension back up, and it knows when to do the funny moments. At least that's what I got out of it.
Oh no, I absolutely, man, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the creature itself, yeah. Since we said again, it is pretty much the build up for it is perfect. Like I said, um, as you heard me say that giant monologue here and there about the buildup, but no, it is true because you don't really see the creature too much, and by the time you fully see it, it is truly a wonder to be like, oh wow, so much effort was built into that, and I previously said it, but I think the only other monster movie that does that effectively might be Godzilla, and then definitely Jaws. Jaws definitely is the master at building up the reveal of the monster.
Yeah.
I think another one would be Jurassic Park, the first movie. The build-up is perfect.
Oh,
Yeah, I would
absolutely.
agree with that too. I mean, the difference with that one is that you definitely see. I mean, you definitely see the Brontosaurus. You definitely see the Brontosaurus first. There, that's like the first dinosaur shown, and then you don't fully see you don't fully see the T Rex um,
The
until the T Rex officially
Until
shows
an
up.
hour into the movie.
Yeah, until an hour into the movie, and then the Velociraptors, you see hints of them here and there, and then you fully see them in their entirety until what?
Like the third act.
Yeah, the third act. Yeah, so you save the best uh, dinosaurs for last, whereas like once you get to like the other sequels in Jurassic Park, they're pretty much there, almost like maybe what a complete 15 minutes or no, not 30 15 minutes, maybe 30 45 minutes into the film. And then obviously when you get to Jurassic World, dear God, the dinosaurs are just there in plain view. um,
yeah, and actually, I think like when you brought up Jaws, kind of made me think that Jaws and Tremors would be a strangely great double feature.
Oh
it
yeah.
actually would kind of if you think about it, because I mean, like we just said, it is Tremors is essentially a Jaws knockoff. It's just set in the desert. It's a western, and you have giant worms instead of a shark.
I mean,
Well,
I
yeah.
But
would. I honestly wouldn't even say it's a Jaws knockoff. It's because it's primarily a tribute to 50s B movies.
I mean, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, you definitely get that feeling of 50s B movie vibes, but I say Jaws knockoff in the sense just because of like, all right, so they're giant. There are man eating creatures, like in the area, and they're almost impossible to kill. So you just kind of have to be like, all right, so what's the next best thing? Well, we can't do. Oh, the shark thing's been done multiple times. How about giant worms in the sand? All right, do it.
Yeah, I
But no,
think.
that's where I'm going from
Oh yeah,
from
and I
that
think if another
perspective.
aspect, if you think about it, is that Jaws and Tremors have one thing in common. Most of the lead characters are three males. Like there's Brody, Quint, and Hooper, and then there's these guys, Bert, Val, and Earl.
Well, I mean, Bert definitely is one of the leads, but I would say
I mean,
in this case, it would probably be more Rhonda in this
yeah,
perspective.
at least for the first installment.
Because she's more, because she would definitely, because Rhonda would definitely be more of the uh, Brody. No, not
Like
Brody.
Brody's wife.
Who's I haven't seen Jaws in a long
Ellen
while.
Brody.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking of like who's the scientist that Richard Dreyfuss plays?
Hooper.
Matt Hooper.
Hooper. So yeah, she's the Hooper in this movie. And then if you want to go technical, then Bert would definitely be Quint, and then Val and Earl would be a combination of Brody.
Yeah.
That would probably be
The most
the
accurate
best,
depiction. Yeah.
more accurate depiction or so. But yeah, but that would be what I would personally think if we're going technical on a Jaws kind of like comparison or whatnot. Do we want to talk about when the grapplites finally do show up and how they are very effective as like monsters and whatnot? Because I think once they finally once they finally get to perfection, that's when things really kind of like hit the fan or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, because I think what I like about it is that after the monster shows up, you get the full reveal. As the movie goes on, you're still learning about it, and so because it's not like you're just waiting for the monster and you're like, oh, there it is. I don't care anymore.
Because the first time you see a grabloid, it dies, and then you think, wait, this movie can't be over. What are we doing? What are we still doing here? I mean, let's not forget the greatest line ever, which is "We killed it, fuck you," and then followed by, "Hey, look, I found the ass end."
Oh yeah, I love that.
Oh god, I love the quotes in this movie so fucking much. I mean, ever since Jeff reintroduced this movie, Jeff and I have been quoting this movie for days. So, I'm like, Rhonda, did you know anything about this?
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
Earl.
Everybody knows about him. We just didn't tell you.
Didn't tell you.
I'll tell you one thing though. Chang ain't getting slick bits on this for $15.
You got that right.
God. By the way, I have since you. It's funny you brought that up because like every time I see Chang, I'm just thinking Chang is the definition of a capitalist. He's always trying to make a profit off of something.
I'll give you boys $5 for this.
20.
15.
Okay, 10.
15.
Okay, 15.
Damn right, 15.
I'm telling you, Chang is like the perfect embodiment of a capitalist, or at least what I think a capitalist. I don't know. I'm probably gonna get some pretty major slack for that definition, but no, he truly, definitely is trying to profit off of this, which is ironic in this case, since what happens to him later.
Ironic.
He rest in peace. But no, so going back to the Graboid. So you think the threat's over, but then Rhonda, she's a seismologist. She's like, I've been getting these reads, and I'm telling you right now, there are 3 more of these. And you're like, oh shit. So then that really amplifies the tension or whatnot, because then you got 2 others, and then you got what we call Stumpy, who is the one that is missing a tentacle, because that's the one that
grabbed their truck.
That Val and Earl escaped from initially. Yeah, exactly, Josh. So then what's also scary is that they learn that they're, I mean, not only obviously the human characters have to stay on their toes all the time, because that's what makes the Graboid so unique, is that they learn. Obviously they reach perfection, and they can't reach them at first when they're like not on exact ground, but then they find a way to break through the floors, and so they have to get on the roofs. But even then, the Graboids are like, all right, we're gonna find a way to shake them off the buildings, and so they basically test the foundations of the buildings, and that's why poor Nestor falls from his trailer and then like gets on a tire and then just bites the dust from there. Good lord.
Oh,
but that just goes to show how great the writing is, or at least the tension is that I think the best monster definitely is a monster that definitely, I wouldn't say maybe learns, but also, okay, adapt would probably be the best word to describe it, that the best monster adapts, which leads to better tension and whatnot from your.
Well, I think also what with if you have a creature that excels on that its main threat is its intelligence, the fact that it's able to learn, and the only way that to really make that creature as suspenseful and to really to sell it is if the characters feel the threat of that creature. And the fact that this movie actually has well written and for the most part pretty smart characters, that actually does add to it adds to the suspense quite a bit. And because you have to see these characters come up with new scenarios on how to either distract it, how to come up with creative ways on how to kill them with the limited resources that they have. It always keeps the characters on their toes. If anything, it amplifies the intensity of the situation, because because in a way because the characters are portrayed smart.
Are you sure about that though? Because
for the most part,
I was gonna say, because I have here in my notes, Val and Earl can't plan for shit. At least Val can't.
At least, well, yeah, because it's like they're technically dumb people. Like, it's like Val and Earl are.
They're basically average. They're average handyman.
Exactly.
Handyman. They're
exactly.
losers.
Yeah,
so
they
they don't really think ahead or plan ahead for the future. I mean, for God's sakes, Val's definition his ideal woman is what?
You
Jeff?
will have long blonde hair, big green eyes, world-class breasts, ass that won't quit, and legs that go all the way up.
So you can definitely see. I mean, exactly. So you can definitely see how disappointing it is when he first meets Rhonda. He's like, "Oh,
Rhonda's cute. I don't know what his
she
deal
is.
was.
She is. She definitely
Yeah, but
is." But I mean, I definitely would ask Rhonda out on a date. But I mean, let's be honest. We all want some sort of typical. We all want some sort of ideal woman.
Tammy
But,
Lynn Baxter.
yeah, but yeah, it don't matter. They're all the same. Dead weight. Ooh, I broke a nail.
But you are right, though. In all seriousness, because they keep having to think on their toes. Because eventually they're like, no wonder why Edgar was up there for 4 or 5 days. They were on the ground or whatnot.
Exactly.
So
And,
you just so you're right. These characters truly have to like think on their toes. They're not like Bert. They're not Bert and Heather who are survivalists who can just shoot their way out of a situation. Oh wait, they did.
Wait, broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, did they?
Let's talk. Okay, so let's talk about this scene. I think the rec room scene is by far one of the greatest bits ever put on cinema, and so.
It should have gotten an Oscar just for that
who
scene.
wants to set this scene up? Because I think who wants to start first? Because I think it's going to take.
Bert, they're under the ground. They're under the ground.
So I mean, it's
iconic.
So it starts off. So they start off. The scene starts off with Heather and Bert. They're going back to their place, their bunker or whatnot. And I guess they're what? What are they doing with the ammo? Are they what?
I think it's like they're getting back from their hunt and looking for resources, like getting their ammo back
Right.
together, getting more resources.
And then they turn on like that machine that like shakes their ammo up and whatnot. I'm not exactly
Yeah,
sure.
I'm
what
guessing that
machine is.
reloads the ammo or something. I don't know.
With gunpowder probably or some sort. And so you think they have some pretty good firearms, or firepower on them, but you don't realize just how much firepower they have. Hold on, let's wait off. And so, you think that they're gonna die pretty quickly because they don't have that many guns. And so, when the grab light finally bursts through, their basement, they just have the rifles, and real quickly you're just going, "Oh my god!" in the distance on the radio, and then like you hear the gunfire, and then we go back to them, and then there they are. They're just firing at it, and then they're just kind of standing back. And the camera just does a slight pan over, and there is a giant wall of guns. We're not just talking pistols. We're talking like assault rifles, shotguns,
Elephant guns.
an elephant shotgun. You name it. You thought these are survivalists? They're armed to the teeth for survivalists. And it's also one of the best technical scenes because this scene uses all the tricks in the book. So, Jeff, you want to describe that real quick?
So in this scene, you get like a beautiful blend of full scale animatronics. You get miniatures. You get this really great shot of there's a shot where Bert throws one of his guns to the ground, and then you get a shot of the camera looking down at the gun on the floor, and then so you get a full scale gun, then it seamlessly fades into a miniature gun, and then it pans over to the right, and then it cuts and then it's showing the miniature graboid lunging forward, and it's all done in one shot, but it's technically it's two different shots cut together, but
that's been blended in pretty seamlessly. So it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, it's absolutely seamless. Like unless you're like if you really pay attention, you can kind of notice the change in lighting. But again, like that's if you're really looking for.
When I was watching that scene, I was kind of trying to, because I'm an editor, because that's what I kind of went to school for editing. Well, that was part of my degree when I was in film school, but I was trying to see the edit. I couldn't quite tell where they kind of cut it. Where do you think they cut it? So I think they cut it right as they're about to pan over.
Oh yeah, so it's like as soon as you see the gun hit the floor, If you look extremely closely, you can see a mild change in lighting,
I did see that. Yeah.
So in that moment, that's when it's the miniature gun, and it's panning over to the miniature graboid.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's done seamlessly, and because again, like
there is one shot in the entire sequence that doesn't quite exactly work, and that's Bert. So you see Bert from behind shooting at the graboid, and you can kind of tell it's. I wouldn't say it's. Is it? Would you say? Because I don't know if this was green screen. Is it rotoscoping?
It might be blue screen. I don't know, but it even as a kid, I knew that looked pretty bad. But again, it's like one shot that lasts for about 3 seconds. So
it doesn't last for very long. But even then, you're just like, okay, this kind of seems off. One thing I want to note too, that I don't think a lot of people touch upon in that same 3-second shot. I don't even think that's Michael Gross. I think they got a stuntman for that. At least that's just me.
So for all I know, it could have just been like a pickup reshoot shot that they, or just random insert that they wanted to get in there, and it. For all I know, like it could have been extremely last minute and just kind of slapped together.
Mm-hmm. I just thought it was just fascinating. For me, I've always thought this was just the sequence alone was great for everything both of you have mentioned, like just the perfect seamless bit of like everything in the book. So like you said, the miniatures, the animatronics, that editing transition from life size to miniature to fit the puppetry of the graboid going up and down and whatnot. I thought it was great. They also have reverse. We forgot to mention this, but like there's reverse photography in this movie. So if you don't know what that is, they basically just rewind the footage back a bit just to make the shot work. So like for the graboids, when they're extending their tentacles, what they're really doing is like the tentacles are just shrinking out because they don't really have the ability to shoot out like that. So they basically reverse the shot essentially. Well, they have to shoot it backwards. And so when they put it in the editing booth or in the editing room, it's brought forward to give it that effect.
Well, I think
which I think works.
Well, I think after that that shot of after Bert first shoots it, or so after Heather shoots one of the tongues off, and it bashes its head on the ceiling. In that shot, it's a fucking hand puppet.
Yeah, that is a hand. Oh yeah, that's definitely a hand puppet. I think speaking of hand puppets, I think the other hand puppet that shows up is when we first see like one of the tentacles in action, and that's when like the doctor and his wife die. So like I think that's also a hand puppet.
It's got to be. But again, like this movie only had a budget of $11 million, and it looks like it could have been made for double that.
Absolutely.
Like the effects department did a wonderful job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's no way that this movie, looks like it is that cheap. I mean, it is incredible how well shot and well like budgeted this movie was, because you can't tell absolutely that this is a movie made for, you said 11 million, right?
11 million, yeah. And I think Ron Underwood, the director, I think he came from a background of
special effects, right?
I think even just like making some documentaries or something. So nothing of this scale really. And when it when it came to film tackling a concept like Tremors, it's a special effects heavy creature feature.
Oh yeah.
With starring a technically reluctant actor, and it's just one of those lightning in a bottle movies where it was the right writers, it was the right director, it was the right effects team, it was the right casting, and everything just came together so perfectly that it's like, for as much as I enjoy a majority of the sequels, because part 6 is fucking garbage, it's just one of those movies that I would say it's like Jaws or Ghostbusters, just these movies that everything that everyone involved just did such a wonderful job, and
Mhm.
just I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Oh
Me
yeah,
either.
absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, what do you think, Josh? How do you feel about the technical aspects of the film?
Well, I think the tentacle act is very, very, very good. I mean, when I first saw those tentacle tongue things, I really thought, is that the creature? I mean, I was a little kid, so I was kind of stupid. And so, but then I saw what they really looked like, and I thought, oh, okay. And I especially love how they say, well, these must be like the little snake tongue things.
Hmm. You know, I just realized because if you really think about it, because if you look at a poster for Tremors, you don't see the full, um, the full graboid head. You see like one of the tentacle heads pointing out of the ground. By the way, the poster for Tremors, doesn't it kind of look like the Jaws poster?
It totally does,
Oh
but
yeah. So see, there's another connection to
I
Jaws
love
right there.
I love the Tremors poster. Like that's absolutely one of my favorite posters ever.
Oh yeah, and I love that tagline. Like, it's not what beneath the sun; it's under the ground, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't really paid attention in that poster, but yeah. But yeah, no, I'm serious. That poster, it's a definite homage to Jaws just going again, talking about Jaws. Oh my gosh, definitely we're gonna be talking about Jaws at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, Josh, aren't you like a big fan of Jaws? Like that's one of your favorite movies of all time.
Absolutely.
Remind me to bring you back for that episode. So yeah, so overall, what are our final thoughts on Tremors?
So for me, Tremors, it's always been one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's kind of it's aged like a fine wine, I would say. It's the older I've gotten, and just the more I've learned about filmmaking and screenwriting and just how to construct a movie overall. It's made me appreciate the movie so much more because I used to just take it at entertainment value and just have a great time with it, but
Mm-hmm.
just taking a closer look at how this movie was constructed from a technical aspect, from the writing perspective, and just pretty much everything from a filmmaking perspective, it made me just realize that it, this is just a good movie, just a really fucking good movie, and everything that it set out to do, it accomplished it perfectly. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like when it wants to capture the vibe of a western, it does that very well. When it wants to be scary, it can be pretty suspenseful at times. When it wants to be funny, it's fucking hilarious. When it wants to have a sense of mystery and intrigue, it does that perfectly. Like everything that it sets out to do in its script, it achieves it 100%. And I have tremendous respect for this movie. I think Ron Underwood directed a phenomenal movie, and I think he deserves a lot more credit for this movie. Kevin Bacon is wonderful. Fred Ward, Michael Gross, Finn Carter, everyone involved. Studio ADI who did the special effects. Everyone should be applauded for this movie, and I would say in a way that this movie doesn't really get the full credit it deserves. Like people know about Tremors, but I don't think it
Just
gets.
doesn't get enough recognition in the
Yeah,
long run.
yeah. I don't think it gets the proper level of attention and praise that it truly
Mhm.
deserves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, what about you, Josh? What are your overall thoughts about Tremors?
Everything you guys said, and I pretty much agree because this is one of the best movies I think I've ever seen. I mean, it came out in 1990, and it holds up really, really, really well. Well, and
Absolutely.
it's an A+, 10 out of 10 for me. It's a great movie. It's a masterpiece. I would watch it forever. I could.
Yeah, it's funny for me. So, like, Tremors is one of those movies where it's like I said before, where I had known about it. Maybe I came across it once or twice on TV. I just never really watched it. And then once Jeff finally got me around to watching it, then I was like, this is a lot of fun. And so, as a result, because of this, as you probably have heard, we endlessly quote this movie. Um, but if we're going on just overall on Tremors, I just feel like it is a perfect blend of a lot of things. It's a great Western. It's a great comedy. It's a great monster movie. It's a great blend of practical effects of the time and a great blend of pacing and characters. Like the characters are, I mean, the characters aren't. I wouldn't say they're like extremely memorable film characters, but they're definitely characters that you won't forget at the end of the day. Like for example, definitely Val and Earl. Like the camaraderie alone between those two is something that I think we all can relate on some sort because we definitely like know that we either have those friendships with people or we know people who have those kind of like bonds with them. So in the end, I feel like this is a movie where it just works on a lot of levels, and it's just a fun time. It truly is because there's not at no point, like I said earlier, there at no point while you're watching this movie do you think you're bored. Like you're fully like entertained, and you truly think that, gosh, this is just a wild run, wild one. Fudge, I can't speak. You get the idea, but no, it's just there's just this movie is pretty magical for what it is, and I truly think that Red Letter Media, specifically Mike Sikolasca, got it right that this is by far one of the most awesomest movies ever made, and I think everyone should definitely check it out. Definitely, if you don't, if you want to own add a movie to your collection, this is definitely one to add. And
Absolutely.
I still haven't watched the sequels, and so yeah, that's kind of it. So I just want to mention briefly. So we did mention that Tremors 7 is coming up in October, and so what you have just listened to is the first installment of our Tremor series. So we're going to be coming back every once in a while before October to talk about every installment of Tremors. We're even going to discuss the TV series that aired from when did that TV series first air?
It was in early 2003.
Okay, so yeah, and then from there we'll also discuss the pilot that was shot but never ultimately released, and how sci-fi
Fucked it
doesn't know.
over.
Yeah, pretty much. And so we encourage everyone, just to, stick around. We'll definitely be coming back to these. Definitely coming back to a little town in perfection and the wonderful world of grabloids. Tremors. Be mindful of where you step. So I guess that's going to do it for us for this little installment of the show. So for those of us listening, thanks for tuning in. Definitely follow us on all social platforms. I don't have social. That's not true. I do, but you're just gonna have to just be patient. And here we are. We like to thank Josh for joining us. Really
Thank you, Josh.
Appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, and thank you guys for having me. I was
Thank
happy
you.
to be
Yeah.
here.
Oh yeah, of course. And thank you for your input. Definitely adds a different perspective to things. So we definitely appreciate you coming on here. So from all of us here, this is Eric.
This is Jeff.
This is Josh.
All right, and this has been Two Nerds and a Podcast. So from all of us here, see you around, and remember, good luck, shitheads.
Don't worry about us,
me,
jerkwads.
All right, everybody, take it easy and have a good time.